Hi everyone, this is Lindsay from Sea Salt and Samphire. Today I'm going to show you a tutorial on how to put my Easter Bunny shadow box together. As with all my digital files that I sell, you do get full instructions in a written PDF file with pictures, but I thought it would probably be useful to show you a video on how I actually put it together for this one, because there's quite a lot of collage elements in this one, as well as just cutting the files out. So as you can see, I've already cut all my pieces out on my silhouette machine. Obviously you can use a Cricut machine or whatever other cutting machine you have. I also provide hand cutting files in case you're that way inclined. And as you can see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 layers, plus a few collage pieces that make up the bunny rabbit itself, and also some egg pieces that go behind the cutouts of the eggs, and also a few little flower pieces, but you'll see what happens with those when we start putting it together. So before we start sticking the bunny together, I thought I'd show you some of the tools I use. The glue I use is actually like a glue pen, and it's got a really fine tip at the end. It means you can be really accurate with your gluing, especially when you're gluing tiny pieces like we are. I've also got what's called an awl, I think. It's like just a pokey thing really. My scalpel, which I used to use for cutting out by hand, and also some fine ended tweezers just for picking up some small bits of paper if you need to. Okay, so we're going to start by doing the bunny's head first. So this has got the most pieces out of all the pieces of the bunny, so it's quite methodical how you put it together. The first piece you'll want to put on glue on there, is the pink ear piece. As you'll notice, I've actually flipped the bunny head over, so we're on the reverse at the moment. And just make sure you line it up so the point of the pink bit is covering the whole of the bunny's nose. So I'm just going to put the glue onto the actual bunny head. This is the delicate bit along the ear, really, because it's quite thin. And I'm just going to do it sort of roughly the same shape as the pink piece of paper. I mean, you don't have to be 100% accurate because we're going to glue the bunny onto other things later, so it doesn't matter if the glue is a bit too much. Incidentally, with these types of glues, the ones that I use anyway, you can actually let the glue dry slightly and it goes tacky, and it will still stick and hold the paper. Sometimes that's a lot easier if you've got really tiny fiddly pieces of paper. So I'm just trying to line it up, and I'll make sure that it's covering the nose properly. You can use a scalpel or your awl just to nudge the paper over slightly if you feel like it's not quite in the right place. Ideally, you'd let this dry before you carried on, but as it's a tutorial, that'd be really boring, so I'm just going to go ahead and stick the other pieces on. But as you can see, it's covered most of the nose. You've still got the couple of side holes that the black layer is going to show through. I'm just going to line this up and make sure I get it in the right place before I stick glue on it. So again, I'm putting the glue on the bunny side. This is just so I don't accidentally put glue on where the black will show through for the eye, because otherwise it will look a bit messy when it's the right way round. You sort of have to make a judgment call when you're doing collages about which piece would be the best piece to put the glue on. You'll get used to it though when you've done a few. I need to keep remembering to put the lid on my glue because it can dry out quite quickly, and then you have to clean all the nib. Okay, so I think that's in the right place. Might have to do a little bit of adjustment. Right, there we go. So that's the black layer. Can you see there's still a hole in the eye, so that's where the piece of white will shine through, well, not shine through but show through. And just line up the white before you glue it on, just so you can check that you're going to get it in the right place. And then again, I'm putting the glue on the bunny head side rather than the piece itself. Now I'm picking this up with my fingers just because I'm used to doing this, but you might need the tweezers for the small pieces like this. And you'll probably need to nudge it into place as well. With your awl or your scalpel or something pointy. You could use a cocktail stick actually instead of an awl if you don't have one. See, even I've done it wrong there. I haven't moved it over far enough. Let's slide it over a bit. I'm going to have to pick that off. There we go. I think that would be better. Yep, that's better. Right. Just make sure everything is stuck and glued down before you carry on. Okay, there's the main bit of the bunny head. So let's move that out the way, and now we can start on the bunny's body. This one's a little simpler in comparison to the head, so because you're just basically going to glue the three, stack and glue the three colours together. So the buff colour goes at the back, because it makes up what's supposed to be the fluffy bit of the bunny's feet and the fluffy bit of the bunny's tail. So it's easier to flip it over before you glue it, because then you can, because the buff colour is slightly smaller. I did an offset when I created and cut it. Okay, so that should be okay. As the buff bit's the smaller piece, I'm going to add the glue to this piece rather than the black. Otherwise you'd end up with the glue around the edges of the black piece, which you don't really want because that means it's going to be messy. But if you notice, I'm deliberately not adding glue to the bits that should be the fluffy bits. They'll actually show from behind the other layers. Hope that makes sense. It can be a bit tedious sometimes getting enough glue on the bigger pieces. Sometimes if it's a really big piece I actually use a Pritt stick, where if it's a piece you don't need to be really accurate with. Again, you might need to, yeah, it's easier to flip it over. Again, you might need to nudge it a little bit to make sure you get it in the right place. Right, that looks, yep, that looks okay. Got a nice fluffy bit there, nice fluffy bit on the feet. So now we just need to glue the brown bit of the bunny on top. And again, as the black piece is slightly smaller than the brown piece, I'm putting the glue on the black piece. And there you go. You're probably wondering why there's a black piece on here, but I'm not sure if you can see on the video, but there's a line, so that's where it lines up. There's a line between the two front paws that's where the black shows through. I just did it like that for consistency, really. Right, so the final piece, well, not the final piece, but the final big piece of the bunny is his back leg, or her back leg. I don't know if it's a male or female, the Easter bunny. And again, I'm just sort of dry fitting it together just to check I've got it all lined up and know where I'm putting everything. I hope I'm going slow enough for you in this tutorial. Usually I'd be whizzing through this. It's actually hard to slow down. I've also realised how boring it is watching someone put glue on a piece of paper. Okay, so we're lining this up in the same way as we did the body, because there'll be a slight border of the black, because the black piece is slightly bigger. And there you go, and then there's the buff bit is the fluffy piece of the foot on the bottom. Just make sure it's all glued together properly before you stick the other piece on top. The reason I keep saying that is if it's still a bit too wet, when you're trying to glue the other layers on, it slides all over the place and it'll just all go hideously wrong and you'll get really angry. Don't ask me how I know. Right, I'm putting the glue on the black piece just because it's smaller than the brown piece. Flip that over and line it up. And there you go, there's his back leg. I mean, he does have another back leg in real life, you just can't see it in the collage that we're doing. And there we go. Okay, so move the body and the leg out of the way, and we're going to glue the, I guess you call it a ruff, I don't know, the bit under it, the furry bit under his chin on his chest. I think it's called a ruff. And if you look, you'll see that there's a slight point in the middle top of the ruff, and it corresponds, well, not in the middle, sort of over to the right hand side, it corresponds to the point where the bunny's cheeks go in at his chin. So that's a guide of lining it up. And you want to glue it on the very, very edge of the bunny's head. So you'll just need a thin line of glue on the bottom of the bunny's head. You might see this is where the point is here. You might need the tweezers to pick this piece up. So I'm just lining the point up with the dip in the bottom of the bunny's head. I mean, it doesn't matter if you glue it up a bit too high, because it won't matter on the final. Won't matter on the final piece. You'll just have a slightly shorter ruff. That's his little ruff. So it's going to line up on the bunny like this when we put it all together. Okay, so now we're going to stick the bunny together. I've already put the glue on the back of all my pieces, and we're going to stick the bunny together on the bunny base layer here. Now you're going to have, when you stick the body on first, if you line up the tail so it's covering the green point, you'll still see that you've got a slight green border on the back right hand side. That is meant to be there because then that will help you line up where the leg goes, the back leg goes, sorry. And we're going to do that last. And then we're going to line up the bunny head. Just use the green base layer as your guide and make sure it's covered so you can't see it behind. You can flip it over and take a look just to make sure you've got it in the right place. But that looks good to me. Now we're going to put his little cheeks on now, his fluffy cheeks. And it's quite straightforward where they go because it lines up with the nose and the side of the cheeks. Just make sure you can still see the nose holes or the nostrils. That's the word I was looking for earlier, nostrils. Make sure you can still see his nostrils. And then the leg will line up and just touch the side of his right cheek and obviously cover the green part at the top. So there, that's the bunny all put together. You'll probably want to leave that aside to dry for a little while just to make sure it's all stuck down properly. So while that's drying, I'm going to show you how to put the daisies together. Now this is the really fiddly bit because obviously they're quite tiny. But basically you just need to add the glue to all the white pieces of the daisies, obviously the reverse of the daisies. You may need to use the tweezers or the scalpel or something to hold these still while you're doing it. Because, like me, you'll probably get in a bit of a pickle and get daisies stuck to your fingers. I wish I could come up with a better way of... sorry, I'm getting this all stuck all over me. I wish I could come up with a better way of doing really small, delicate flowers. But the thing is, if you're trying to do it as a negative and have a hole where things show through, like I know a lot of shadow box designers just do straight layers. They don't do any collage parts. It's really difficult to get the right detail, so that's why I favour making collage style shadow boxes, because then I can get the tiny details. I know some crafters like that because they like to have a challenge. Some don't, it's just your preference really. But this is how, I've been making shadow box designs for about 7 years now, and this is just how it's evolved for me and how I decided to do it. I'm definitely from a more arty background than a designy background. So all I'm doing now is just placing the yellow parts. Oh, there you go. You can see once it's flipped over, you can see the daisy. As you can see, I'm actually using the point of my scalpel to pick these pieces up because it's so much easier. You could use tweezers, but obviously as I used to be a hand paper cutter, I'm used to using my scalpel for everything. Sorry about my head getting in the way there. I have to get really close these days because I'm getting old and my eyesight isn't what it was. Okay, so that's all the daisies done. So you make sure those are dry before we add it to our shadow box. Okay, so we're going to put place the daisies on. You can place them wherever you like, really, but in order to guide us, so that we can actually see the daisies once it's all in the shadow box, I'm just using putting the two layers that are in front of the bunny layer, just placing them on the top. So So that's the mount layer on top, just so that we know the area we're working with to put the daisies on. So the daisies are going to go on the lighter green layer here. I've also already added glue on the back of these as well, just to speed it up. And it's up to you where you arrange them. You could dry fit them, like arrange them first, and then put the glue on and stick them down. It's up to you. I know roughly where I want to put them, so sometimes I dry fit everything, take a photo, and then put all the glue on, and then I can refer to the photo. Just depends how you want to work, really. I love daisies. I think they're really pretty. Okay, so that's all our daisies. Right, so I've just got the layer with the daisies on now. If you have a look, you'll see that some points to mimic the leaves were cut out when you cut it out on your machine. So what I'm doing is I'm just getting the awl underneath and bringing them forward just to sort of mimic further leaves on it. So it's just a bit more 3D in the frame, really, not as flat. You could use a cocktail stick to do this instead of an awl if you haven't got one, or anything pointy, really. Right, so now we're going to, excuse me, stick the daffodil head onto the daffodil layer. It's just a case of putting glue on the reverse of it, which I've already done, and then lining it up. Make sure you stick it down well. Right, so now we need to stick the back pieces on all of our eggs. Oh, there goes all my tools. I think my table I'm working on is on a slight incline. I live in a really old house and nothing is level in this house. So as before, I'm putting the glue on the side that I think will have the least impact on the front, or least chance of me making a mistake. So I'm doing it on the side that's got the holes perforated, and then I'm taking the pink egg and just placing it over, making sure all the holes are covered, or the cut throughs, cut outs, whatever you like to call it, are covered. And then just repeat the process for each of the eggs. Again, I could have designed it so you had a whole layer and just stuck the layer behind, but I just think it's a waste of paper, to be honest with you. Like, why use 2 sheets of paper when you can get it all cut out of one? That's what I say. Also, with collage style shadow boxes, you actually can use up all your bits of scrap paper, which you probably otherwise just like throw away or recycle. I'm a bit of a hoarder. I rarely throw pieces of scrap paper away. I've got 2 whole drawers full in my craft room, just full of scrap pieces of paper. My son does use them sometimes. For just doing pictures and things himself, but also paper's expensive these days. I don't want to be throwing money away. Right, so I'm going to stick the blue one on this one. Incidentally, you'll know which one to stick on there because in the PDF instructions, it will show you which ones go where. I usually do it like a full sheet of all the cutouts that you're going to have in the instructions, and then I show you a full sheet of what it should what the layers should look like once all the collage parts are done and before it goes into the shadow box, so you can see and make sure that you've got everything okay and correct. Right, so the last one, we're just going to put the purple egg behind. Right, so once they're all stuck down, we've got all our layers apart from the butterfly. So what we need to do with the butterfly, you could stick it on flat, but I like to bend it in the middle, so I just use my thumb to make a crease. Sorry, I need it near my face so I can actually see what I'm doing. So I've made a crease, and then I'll put the glue down the sort of spine that I've made. It doesn't matter if it flattens out, again you can easily bend it now you've made a crease on it. Oh, there you go, you see where the glue is, and then stick it onto the background piece, the light blue background piece. I've stacked all the layers, as you probably guessed, just so I can see the best place to put the butterfly and make sure I'm putting it in the right place. If you're not confident just putting the glue on the spine, or you can't be bothered to wait for it to dry because you'll have to leave it to dry for a little bit longer when it's on the spine because there's not as much glue, you could just glue on just one side of the butterfly and stick that down and still have the top bit sort of folded, if you see what I mean. It's up to you really. Right, so now we've got everything done, we're going to assemble it in our shadow box frame. So I've already cut out all my spacers, and I have got a tutorial video on that if you want to go and check on my channel that shows you how to make spacers out of foam board. But we're just putting the mount layer in first. Just try and get it sort of central as you can. My frame's just a little bit slightly bigger than my layers. Okay, so I've done the mount layer, then a spacer, then the layer that's got our daisies on, and then I'm going to put the layer that's got the Easter banner on it next without a spacer, and also the pink egg layer. Because if we put a spacer between every single layer, the shadow box wouldn't be deep enough. Okay, so now I've put a spacer in, now I'm putting the bunny layer in. And then another spacer. And you see that I'm sort of lining up where the circular part goes, the semicircular part goes for each of them. And then I'll layer with our daffodil on. And another spacer. And then our two final egg layers go in together as well. Purple first, and then the yellow. And then our final layer is our background layer with a butterfly on. Just be really careful. Sorry, spacer first. Silly me. Just be really careful when you're putting this layer in that you don't catch the butterfly on anything, so just place it really carefully, because I've done that before and knocked it off. And then the back of the frame goes on. I'm afraid mine's a bit beat up because obviously I use it for displaying all my shadow boxes that I design, so it's not in the best shape. And then that's your Easter Bunny shadow box finished. Thank you for watching, and hope to see you next time for the next tutorial.